Hey everyone, my name is Carly and I'll be giving this presentation on genetically engineered foods and the connection between climate change. We all know that climate change virtually affects each and every subject related to the environment, from the changing weather patterns to natural disasters to wildlife to droughts and much more. With that being said, climate change greatly impacts genetic engineering and the future of food. We will be focusing on topics such as environmental risk factors, human health factors, and the future of food production, such as food security and world hunger, all stimulated through climate change. I know that climate change is real, and a lot of other people also agree that global warming is real, but there are still a lot of people that are not convinced. Looking at all the evidence, I would say that there is no real debate. A big problem we have is world hunger, which is not a new thing, but the lack of agriculture and food in our future will decrease if our temperatures increase, which could pose a serious concern for our food security. A lot of people believe that genetic engineering could possibly help to eliminate world hunger and provide food security when we are at the point of no return from global warming. This is not necessarily wrong, but several risk factors comes with eating quote-unquote unnatural food. With the help of thermodynamics from graduate student Carl F. Jordan in his paper Genetic Engineering, the Farm Crisis and World Hunger, he was able to conclude that genetically engineered plants cannot actually increase food production, repel pests, resist herbicides, and compete with weeds for water. It just cannot do it all. A lot of people are now seeing hidden facts about the effects of GMO. This also may result in energy losses at the farm level, bringing in less income for farmers and more downfall than benefits. In another paper called Climate Change and Food Security, written by J. Edwards in 2004, he mentioned while some places are generally cold and may not produce crops due to the frost, it may benefit from global warming. Every other place on that note will suffer greatly and it will be harder to adapt. Places that will suffer the most and struggle for food and food security are tropical and subtropical places. With the climate change, we are at a greater risk of natural disasters bringing floods, droughts, fires, and more that could damage existing crops. Food security is an extremely important future problem. Even though genetically modifying crops may seem like the answer, it may do more harm than good. We know that the rise of global warming and climate change has a big impact on human health, especially the things we are doing as humans to make climate change worse, such as emission of fossil fuels, pollution, and much more. These affect our health, but with climate change on the rise, we may have to find an alternate route, such as genetically engineering foods, not knowing all the facts about what is done to the environment or foods to make these products. It is the fear of the unknown. What scientists have found is that GMO has new allergens associated with the GMO's food. According to the Down to Earth Foundation, the next risk is antibiotic resistance towards these plants and towards new allergens. Antibiotics don't seem too effective. There have been new traces of toxins in these genetics, along with the concentration of toxic metals, and if it is ingested throughout the body throughout a significant amount of time, it can do a lot of harm. And lastly, again, the fear of the unknown. We just have little to no knowledge about the GMO foods and what could possibly be done to our body. With the risk of antibiotic resistance and new allergens, the emergence of infectious disease is a serious thing to consider, said by M.G. Rivera in The Future of Agriculture, Agricultural Knowledge for Economically, Socially, and Environmentally Sustainable Development article in 2008. This resistance among bacterial pathogens, including resistance to vancomycin, which is an antibiotic used only to treat infections of antibiotic-resistant bacteria. This is a huge risk and a factor to consider for future pandemic teams. Climate change greatly affects the environment as a whole, but with the changing climate and the heat, crops and produce are having a much harder time growing. With the effects of GMO coming into play, it presents several risks to our environment. Genetically modified organisms greatly affect our environment. According to the Foundation Down to Earth, which focused on the harmful effects of genetic engineering as a whole, describes several different harmful effects to our environment, such as enhancement of toxic fungi, cross-contamination, an increase in weeds, change in herbicide use patterns, pest susceptibility genes, poison wildlife, creation of new or worse viruses, and lastly, the fear of the unknown, also taken from the Down to Earth Foundation. With that being said, the rise of climate change brings many risks, especially being the fear of the unknown. There is just so little that we know about genetic engineering and the quote-unquote playing God factor. Modifying the genetic makeup of certain foods and such to make more food, it could just bring more bad outcomes than good outcomes. I want to touch slightly on the animal agriculture and how it brings on increasing methane and nitrous oxide concentration to the Earth's atmosphere. Climate change brings a vice versa situation for livestock and climate change. While climate change affects livestock, livestock also affects climate change. Climate change is affected by manure management. This is referenced from an article called Introduction to the Concepts of Climate Change Impact on Livestock and Its Adaptation by Dr. Viramsey Sajan. The direct impacts of climate change on livestock are on its growth, milk production, reproduction, metabolic activity, and disease occurrences. In conclusion, we know that climate change is greatly affecting our world day by day. We know that with global warming increasing, with the continuation of use of fossil fuels and emissions on the daily. With that being said, global warming affects more and more of the growing of the crops and agriculture. As mentioned before, genetic engineering may be the solution to world hunger and food security in the future, but with that, there may be many issues to the environment and human health. To our future, we have to help to continue to reduce fossil fuels, to reduce the amount of global warming, and to save our planet. Thank you.